Has this ever happened to you? Have you or someone you know been stalked or harassed on social media?
It apparently happens more often than you think. So what do you do if someone is trashing you on social media?
And this is Chick to Chick.
This is another one of those podcasts that's based on real life. So I have a very, very good friend. And for the last 3 months, another woman has just been trashing her endlessly on social media. I mean, it does not stop, day in, day out. All of these vile, disgusting things that no woman should ever say about another woman. I feel horrible for my friend. And, you know, somebody else is doing this on their social media platform. And we thought, what a great podcast, because if it's happening to my friend, it's probably happening to other people. What do you do when this happens?
I don't know, but I think we just need to get right into it because we have a great criminal defense attorney, Brian Perry, with us today. First of all, Brian, are you seeing this happening, or is it just feeling like this is happening to a lot of people?
So I am seeing things in my practice. I've been a lawyer for about 30 years that I've never seen. The types of cases that are coming in are cyber stalking, cyber bullying, terroristic threats, extortion. You're seeing things through social media and through the internet that I've never seen in my career.
Why do you think this is happening all of a sudden? Why are people doing this and saying this ugliness and this nastiness on such a public forum like this?
So I have lots of theories. I think some of it is being cooped up in COVID for all these years. People just seem angry. They get behind an iPad or a laptop, have a few drinks, and all of a sudden they're bulletproof. There are several examples or reasons why these things happen. Usually it's a jilted or disgruntled lover, in some kind of infidelity. There's mental illness, there's drugs or alcohol, but there's always a reason behind it. But I'm seeing things in my practice every day that like I said, I've never seen before.
Yeah, it's horrible. And my friend has been dealing with this for 3 months now, and this other person won't stop. So if you are the victim of this, and you see this, that somebody is just saying vile things and lies about you and derogatory, inflammatory things, what do you do?
What's the first thing that person should really do?
Yeah.
Right. First thing that you do is you have to memorialize it, screenshot it, save it, take pictures of it. And you need to make sure that you have a record of it. Then you have to decide what route you want to go. Do you want to go the civil route? You want to go the criminal route. And now, if it's a dating relationship, a sexual relationship, or a family, you also have a PFA route, protection from of abuse route. I think I told you, Flora, when we chatted before the show, the podcast, I have a friend going through this, a local guy who's a basketball coach and his wife, and it's been horrible. And ultimately, we got the district attorney and the detectives involved, and this person was charged doing the exact same thing.
Well, that's comforting to know, because I feel like people, just like you said, they think that they're bulletproof because they think they haven't, we've always heard, like,
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, or we've heard people say, well, have they done anything to you yet? So I think people think that they can get away with it. So talk us through, you said that we should see what direction you want to go. If it's civil, are you going to litigate? Like, how's this going to go? What are some other steps that people should be taking to get some resolution?
All right. So a common example is a person cheats on his significant other and then decides not to break it off. The jilted lover, then, it sounds like that may be or may not be the case in your example, Flora. It was not the case in the person I helped out. However, again, the first thing that I would do is I'd reach out to the other party and say, knock it off, or I'm going to do something. The second thing I would do is I would contact a lawyer, and that's not to promote me or anybody else, but I'd get advice from somebody who handles cases like this. The third is memorialize, get screenshots, take pictures, whatever. Talk to your provider, see if you can get records. Then you have to keep in mind, there are multiple crimes that can be charged, because ultimately the criminal justice system is what really shuts this down. There is harassment by communication. There is stalking. There are cyberbullying. There's a statute that includes cyberbullying, especially for kids. That is what can really stop it, because if the person is arrested, a condition of bail can be stay off of the internet, stay off social media, no more posts. And I can give you an example in a minute of the case I was involved in and what ultimately happened.
Well, yeah, let's also talk about how that works with kids. I know that there are incidents of that and they're running rampant. I think you're right. COVID is probably one of the key things that spurred this on. What are young people do? What are they able to do? Some of them are afraid to even talk to their parents about it. But what do you think that they should be doing first?
Well, what you worry about, and I'll be very blunt, is suicide. And you see examples of that across the country. I pulled all the statutes that apply, and there is, under Pennsylvania law, what's called cyber harassment of a child. It's an actual crime. So, hopefully your child will come to you as a parent and report it, or go to a teacher or go to an administrator. The other thing is, we tended to do this with our children. It's difficult, but we would monitor their social media. And if you see it, you have to address it right away. And ultimately, if it doesn't stop, and look, let's be honest, kids are mean.
Yeah.
And we're in a climate right now where it's like, you can say whatever you want. It's my right. Well, no, that's not true. You can't. And another thing, there's a crime. I've seen some cases across the country. If you encourage someone to commit suicide, once you kill yourself, it's a crime. You could be charged with homicide.
Mm-hmm.
So
you said kids are mean, adults are mean too. And I want to go back to something that you said. You said, first of all, contact the other person and tell them to knock it off. I thought that was interesting because I thought the best thing to do was to just say nothing and ignore them, and maybe they would go away. But you're actually saying contact them and say, knock it off. And if you don't, I'm going to the cops. Do you say that?
So there are multiple. Look, it's easy to parent or give advice when it's not you or your child. OK, but I always try to give advice and say, what if it was happening to me? What if it was happening to one of my 3 kids? It depends on the circumstances. If it's a school bully, I have no problem with my son or daughter standing up. I told you we were involved in the Cosby case, in the appeal. We had a person just relentlessly making threats and saying things and emailing to everybody involved. I chose not to take him on. And fortunately, the case was successful and he sort of went away. But I was close a couple of times of going to law enforcement with some of the threats that were made. So I think it depends on the circumstances. If it's a jilted lover, I would not recommend, calling that person. I think I would just memorialize it. And if it gets bad enough and doesn't stop, that's when you try to get law enforcement or an attorney involved.
And when you talked about those charges, are these charges a slap on the wrist, or could somebody actually go to prison for doing this?
So the case I was involved with was a coach and his wife were being stalked and harassed by a parent of a player. All fabricated, mental illness involved. It got so bad, we got the district attorney involved. This woman was charged. A bail condition was no more posts, no more contacts. She didn't stop. She is now in a state hospital, mental hospital, being examined because she's a danger to herself or others. So these tend to be misdemeanor charges, but the consequences can be incarceration. They really can.
You talked about how, people say, well, I can say whatever I want. It's my right. I can say whatever. What do you want to say to people who really think that they can say whatever they want? What are these recourses, whether you're under the age of 18 or you're over the age of 18? So people might take a big pause before they start slamming people.
I think that window of I can say what I want, there's no consequences. I think people are getting tired of it. Mm-hmm. I do. And so what do you say? You say, it's not true. And at some point, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. And if it were happening to me or my wife or my kids or anybody that I love, at some point, enough is enough. And you got to get someone involved. Whether you file a lawsuit, somebody says something about Flora or me or someone, and it affects you, your business, they can be sued for libel or slander, potential, or slander, libel or slander. I can't speak to that. Or you could go down the criminal route. So I think from a criminal perspective, the police get people's attention a lot quicker than a piece of paper from a civil attorney.
Well, and I think that, a lot of people have this mindset, they're harmless. And my whole thing is they're harmless until they're not.
Yes.
Right.
They're harmless until they're not. And I think that you can't just ignore when somebody is doing something vile and mentioning you and contacting your children and contacting your family members, because you don't know what the mental state of that person is. As you said, that person wound up in a mental institution. You don't know where they are, and they're already they're not right if they're doing this to begin with.
Right.
I mean, should you be worried about your own safety as well? And maybe put up cameras around your house or take extra security measures?
No question. I told my friend that was involved in that case that I just told you. The first question I asked was, do you both have guns? Do you both have concealed weapons permits, and carry them with you at all times? And they sort of looked at me cross-eyed, and I said, I'm not kidding. Okay. Number one. Number two, I have Ring cameras. Those things are invaluable to see who's coming and going. And then again, keep your eyes and ears open when you're out. If I was involved in a case where a lawyer was being stalked by a neighbor. And I said to him, when you walk out the door, you hate to be paranoid, but you got to look around and you got to look behind you. And you don't want to live like that. But if you're involved in a situation like we're talking about, you have to. You have to be, your eyes and ears have to be open at all times and take it seriously.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I just think that we've kind of gotten a lot lost in this world in the way that we treat people. And the more that we have a screen in front of us and the less that we're in front of someone, the more we have, the venom to be able to be so mean to other people.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, the bottom line here is you don't have to just take this.
No.
You don't have to just sit back and wait till they stop. You actually can do something about it. What's your final message to somebody who might be going through something like this?
4 out of 10, I did some research, 4 out of 10 people go through something like this in their lifetime. It depends on the degree of it. If it is, it depends on what the context is. If it is something that is minor, suck it up, buttercup. That's my first response. Don't worry about it. Ignore it. Leave it alone. If it's a child that's being constantly picked on, called names, that kid is now in the room and you're worried about suicide and you want it to stop, it's something else. If it's a jilted lover and you really worry about your safety, it goes to the next level. So I think it depends on the degree of it, but you shouldn't put up with it. We don't put up with it as parents within our own house. We shouldn't have to put up with it in our outside lives.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Brian, thank you so much. I hope whomever is listening and, could use this help feels a little bit better today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brian. I wish people wouldn't do it. It's startling to hear from him that it's happening more and more often. 4 out of 10, 40% of us are dealing with this.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're doing it,
knock it off.
Knock it off.
What's your point? What's your end game?
And if you're the victim of it, don't put up with it. You don't have to. And as Brian said, there are ways to get the other person to stop.
Yeah, well, this was an invaluable podcast.
Yep.
We are so happy you were with us today. Do us a favor, head over to our Chick to Chick YouTube page, like and subscribe until we're back to chirp about another topic.